Let's start on this federal investigation into Facebook. And as a reminder, this surrounds Facebook's partnerships with companies like Amazon and Microsoft that basically enabled them to see data about me and my friends that I didn't necessarily give those companies permission to access, correct?
This is part of, yes, this is part of their broader probe into Facebook's data practices. And they're joining this just large set of governments, municipalities, entities like the European Data Protection Commissioner, probing into Facebook's practices right now and trying to figure out what's going on. And this grand jury is an escalation of a DOJ and FBI probe that we've known about for a few months now. So it does seem like things are getting serious.
We're also, a year on from the Cambridge Analytica situation. Investigations into that particular situation also ongoing as well. Facebook, in a statement today about this investigation, said, as we've said before, we're cooperating with investigators. We take these probes seriously. We've provided public testimony, answered questions, and pledged that we will continue to do so. Now, Deborah, I know your focus is Facebook's business. Do you think this government scrutiny is going to impact the business?
Well, the heck of it is that so far we have not seen that happen. It's been incredible. Like you mentioned, it's been almost a year since the revelations of Cambridge Analytica and all of the other things that have happened in the past year. And the question keeps coming up, is Facebook going to start losing the confidence of its advertisers? The answer so far has been no. We forecast that Facebook will have $67 billion in worldwide ad revenue this year. That's an increase of 22%. So advertisers still love Facebook, even though we keep hearing issue after issue after issue.
And what about this outage today? I know that advertisers couldn't run ads on Facebook. Some say they actually lost sales as a result of this outage, which lasted more than 24 hours.
I know, and it's amazing. The hits keep on coming for Facebook, and these aren't the kind that win you baseball games, like with a home run. So, you know what? This is definitely another issue. It's not as impactful, honestly, with larger advertisers. Those kinds of companies probably have the ability to make shifts and pulls in their spending quickly, maybe find another place to put their ad dollars or just reallocate them. That outage really had a bigger impact on the small businesses, on the kinds of companies that maybe only have one person who's in charge of running their ad business. And those are the kinds of companies that might have lost some money or might have lost some sales or might have paid Facebook and are hoping for refunds.
To continue your baseball analogy, Facebook seems to continue to strike out. But, David, if it's hit any home run in the last few months, it's earnings. And earnings last quarter showed, as Deborah mentioned, no change in engagement or revenue. In fact, an increase in engagement in the United States. And so you wonder if there's some sort of massive disconnect between media perception of Facebook and what users actually care about.
Well, I mean, there is a trend in the developing countries of declining usage that is pretty significant. And I think while advertisers are still there, because effectively they don't have an alternative place to go with anywhere near comparable effectiveness. It is astonishing how many people tell me, and I'm sure you experience the same thing, that they're no longer using Facebook. And I can see it in my news feed, how many people that used to be active there are no longer there. And I'm not, a statistically significant correlative example, but I do think there are a lot of people shying away from the kind of usage they did have, and it's a chicken and egg. If the users go away, the advertisers will eventually have to find some other alternatives.
Sarah, I want you to walk through for us the new leaders of Facebook now that Chris Cox is leaving, Chris Daniels is leaving. We've got Fidji Simo, the head of Facebook, Adam Mosseri, the head of Instagram. He has been the head of Instagram. Stan Chudnovsky, the head of Messenger, Will Cathart. head of WhatsApp, who was promoted today given Daniel's departure. What do you know about these people?
So Fiji Simo is one of the fastest rising people at Facebook. She's been in charge of some of their ads products, and more recently she's been in charge of video in Facebook Watch, which has struggled a little bit as we have discussed, but is still very important strategically to Facebook, and she's been impressive. Will Cathcart was in charge of the Facebook app before Fiji, and moving to WhatsApp is something that's it's going to give him maybe a little bit more direct control over a product arm that still has so much building to do. I mean, maybe Facebook, the main app, is more of a legacy product now in Facebook's future if we're pivoting towards this encrypted messaging future. And then Adam Mosseri at Instagram, he's been in that role for a few months, and he's really tried to make it is a similar path to what the founders wanted, but he's going to have to deal with this integration over the next few years, and that's going to be a very difficult debate. You know, how much does he want to represent himself as like a Facebook Inc. person, or how much does he have the interests of the Instagram app in mind? It's going to be a very interesting future for these people.
Deborah, how concerned are you about the departures of Chris Cox and Chris Daniel as Mark Zuckerberg is making a very pointed turn in the direction towards privacy after emphasizing openness and sharing for 15 years?
Yeah, it is a big change, and anytime you see a major executive departure like on the level of a Chris Cox, you do have to wonder. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, people spend a lot of time at certain companies. They do eventually find the time to leave. Maybe this shift in strategy that Facebook has had is that Mark Zuckerberg is proposing is something that Chris Cox either didn't want to participate in or didn't agree with. We don't know, but this is ultimately something to pay attention to. I'm sure we're not done seeing all the changes that are ahead for Facebook.
David, what are the big tests do you think Facebook will be facing this year? I mean, it seems like every day is a test, but what are you going to be watching for this year?
Well, I think usage in the developed countries, as I was discussing before, to the degree they can keep that from eroding further, that's key. My own opinion, though, the thing that so many of us are waiting for is what feels like a genuine acknowledgement of the places they have aired. And I think that's not a business development, but it's really amazing to me how this company continues to act like, oh, we just made a little bit of a mistake. And even their statement that you read before about the grand jury probe, et cetera, taking this seriously. Well, of course they're taking it seriously. It's the law. They don't have a choice. That's not, they never say we made a mistake. I think so many people would love to see them show a little humility beyond what they've shown. And I will add to that Chris Cox, who I do know somewhat well, is somebody who actually has quite a bit of humility. And it wouldn't surprise me if one of the things that he really found grating was that his sense that the company ought to own its heirs was not shared by Mark Zuckerberg.
Interesting. Now, Deborah, as we look ahead to Facebook's next results and results later this year, is there anything in your model showing you that engagement or revenue could run into a wall? I mean, are you seeing that, whether it's in the US or in developed countries or elsewhere, any evidence that the problems are hurting the company?
Well, you know what? We just put out our new forecast last month, February, so we'll be updating our numbers again later in the year as we watch what happens. Right now, we can't see anything at this point, but of course, we're watching very closely the things that David talked about: user engagement, usage in developed countries, how Facebook is monetizing its growth in developing countries, because that's where it's growing the fastest, but yet ad revenue has not kept up in those markets. So is Facebook able to monetize that? And then, the big question mark, honestly, is as Facebook starts to move towards this messaging unification, or the focus on messaging, where's the revenue going to come from that? Is it from advertising? Is it from commerce? Is it from payments? Is there something else that Mark Zuckerberg has up his sleeve? Those are things that we'll all be paying attention to. They could create more revenue opportunities for Facebook, but it's just going to be a wait and see.